More talk about loneliness and isolation and how we fit to use them as tools for self-improvement. Both loneliness and isolation na concepts where they describe reduced human connection, but loneliness they describe the feeling of reduced human connection, while isolation they describe the physical state of being, how you take day in the present. You day alone or you day with people. If you day in the midst of people, you know they by yourself. It means say you know they isolated. But if you day in the midst of people and you know like that setting where you day, or you know like the kind of conversations where they come up, where they usually come up for that setting, then eventually you go begin to feel lonely for that setting if you remain for there. You day place where we say the people where they there, the kind things where they interested in, not be things where be like say you they interested in, you know. Their interests not really they do anything for you. Not be the kind things where they make you feel alive. If you stay that kind of place, eventually you will start to feel lonely because nobody really gets you. The places where your mind will go. Nobody even they reach that vicinity. It's as though you just they alone in so many ways. You feel join in the you know typical conversations, the popular conversations, but beyond that, it's just you. You did by yourself in a lot of ways. So that one will be loneliness, you get. But when you're by yourself completely, just you in a space, that's isolation. So I could go through the sort of ways where we fit to use loneliness and isolation as tools for self improvement. So loneliness as tool for self improvement would be it functioning as a reminder. So if you did a particular setting or you did a particular group, right, of people, and you dey feel like say man, you did by yourself for that setting, you know they really feel like home when you did there. That might be life trying to tell you that you are living out of alignment with who you say you won't be or where you say you won't go. Now why that place where you did not really they feel like they feel like you, basically. They feel like this not place where they build for me to exist inside. This space was curated for me to be in. All this space they well in sync with who I be and with the idea about, with the idea all about. So that not life. If it be life, they try to tell you, say man, try reevaluate yourself, make you adjust things accordingly. You know. It's one thing to move fast. It's an entirely different thing to move fast but with direction. So if you are moving fast but it is without direction, then eventually it's going to become a big waste of your time at the end of the day, because when you do find direction, you now have to circle back and start the whole journey all over again. But if you were moving with direction from the beginning, even if it's slower than even if it's slower than the pace with which you were moving in the other lane, it's way better than you moving with great speed but with no direction. So evaluate yourself, evaluate where you are, evaluate your setting. If you're feeling lonely in a particular space, that may be life telling you to, reevaluate and redirect your steps. So in that way, that's you using loneliness as a tool to optimize your life. Isolation, on the other hand, can be used as a tool to fast track almost anything. It could be spiritual work, it could be learning a skill, it could be wellness, pretty much anything. If you have like a goal that you are working towards, you can use isolation as a tool to help you compound, really quickly, help you develop that skill really quickly. So something that will take you, say, a year, to get really proficient at. For example, if you use isolation as a tool, you would get a lot more time on your hands. You know, you go take out time from other activities where you go normally do during your regular days, and then you go use those all those time for this one activity, you know. And because of that sheer focus, that level of commitment to one thing, you go feel push am, you know, to a great extent. Now, be mindful that doing this could cause imbalance in other aspects of your life. So, not be something where person fit really use as a consistent way, you know, of being. At least it won't be healthy, you know. Now, this particular thing, I feel the need to say that personally, I do run certain periods, you know, where the day a bit more extended, you get, where other aspects are not as balanced, or at least not as balanced as I would like them to be, you know. But in relation to waiting I did try to do, in relation to where I did try to go, there are certain things that I feel like I need to do first before I'm able to spread myself in all these other directions, you know. Now why why at the end of the day, the greatest teaching where you feel give to anybody now to, you know, help them get to a place where they get agency. So having agency means having access to the voice inside of you where they direct you, you know. You know, say I don't talk before, say our spirits, they're very, very old. So he does see everything, he know everything. So the greatest teaching where you feel give now to help guide people back to that self, back to that spirit, back to that voice inside of them. So if he, you know, so when person comes to you, tell you about things like isolation and loneliness and how if you use them as tools, you know, you go take that information and then you go throw them to your spirit so that your spirit will if you use that information. Say tell you, I won't say inform you with the application of that idea go look like for you as an individual. You get, because life they deal everybody different cards. So the card where life deal me different from the card where life where life deal you. It's different from the card where life deal you. So like I talked just now, I feel they use isolation to extreme levels, you know. When me I go say maybe a healthy implementation of it go be like maybe for like a month or two. I'm probably doing way more than that. But then because of my own assessments of my life and waiting I feel say they necessary, waiting I believe say they necessary for waiting I dey try to do. So again, the greatest teaching now, agency, learn how to listen to that voice, learn how to communicate with that voice, you know, learn how to use them as your ultimate guide and, you know, ultimate direction or director, you know, directive for your life. So take these ideas, throw it back to that inner that inner guidance. Make it tell you how to use them, you know, how much of it is ideal for your unique situation, you know. But basically that's isolation. If you use them as tool for self-improvement. And also there are other goals where you fit get for your life where go require the opposite, where go require community instead of isolation. So just stay very mindful of, you know, which is necessary at every point in your life, you know. Everything they relative, the things where you go through the relative. So be mindful. This is why I think life is almost impossible to do beautifully. I don't want to say correctly. I think life is almost impossible to do in a way that is fulfilling without introspection. Because without making time for introspection, how you go take, you know, get this conversation with yourself to figure out the ways to implement ideas for your own unique situation. If there is no time for introspection, how are you going to find those answers? Because if you just take anything where anybody they talk, just implement them as is, exactly like that. It goes beyond, oh, our fingerprints are different. No, our life scenarios are completely different, no matter how similar we look, you know, physically. Just really try to get yourself to that place where you are very aligned with who you say you be or who you say you won't be. So if they make decisions where go they correct for you most of the time. And then lastly, I don't want to talk about isolation being a tool for self-improvement without highlighting that isolation can be used as a tool by somebody outside of you to put you in a position that short term or long term may not be very favorable for you. It's interesting that today of all days, I just watched a documentary before filming this, right? And the documentary is about this man who was a spiritual leader and how he created a cult without realizing that he was creating a cult, you know. And of all the many tools that he used to get people really, committed to the organization, isolation was, of course, one of them. Because when you know they get people to the point where everyone now has to leave their family members, or at least the majority of the people, or a lot of the people, are now in a place where they feel like they have to leave everyone that they've ever known, husbands, children, wives, for this cause, you know, than a very cult like behavior. So I don't want to talk about isolation. I don't want to just throw this idea of isolation being a tool without highlighting this so that you go feel they observe yourself, and as you they engage with other people, you feel they observe the kind of information where you too they receive, because you could hear this that isolation is a tool for self-improvement, and then somebody comes along and is like, yo, I want to help, make your life better. i want to help I want to help improve your life, and you say, okay, yes, I'm open to that, and the person throws isolation in there as one of the ways in which they are going to be helping you on this path. And because you don't hear something like this, it's plausible. It makes sense. But if you're dealing with the wrong person, then that can take a very crazy turn. So I just wanted to thank God say I watched that documentary today, and I thought I should add it to this conversation to keep people watchful of you know what they are doing and what they are getting themselves involved in. But yeah, those are the cocoa for today. Isolation, loneliness. In summary, both can be used as tools for self development. Loneliness could tell you when you probably did in the wrong part, you did in the wrong setting, or you did in the wrong position, when you're not correctly positioned for where you supposed to go. Loneliness will tell you that, and then isolation will help you compound on whatever it is you are trying to create. Help you compound on that thing very quickly or in a short amount of time. All right. My name now Sas, and I will see you for the next video.